This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, I'm very fortunate tonight to have as my guest one of my good friends in Alabama politics and life in general. One of the good guys in Alabama government, Justice Will Sellers from here in Montgomery. I've known Will for years, and he's not only one of the most popular people on the Supreme Court in state politics, he's also one of the most powerful because he's probably Governor Kay Ivey's. He and his wife Lee are their best friend, Governor Ivey's best friends. But I'm so glad to have Justice Will Sellers on the show. I don't think he's ever been on before.
No, I've never been on before. We've talked about coming on here, and this is the first time I've been able to make it work. So I appreciate you having me on here, especially in the new year. It's kind of a good way to get my new year started, Steve, spend time with you.
Thank you. Will and I do have lunch together quite often. We meet at Chappie's or the vegetable place over here.
Yeah, farmer's market. Yeah.
And then, but we talk politics. He's been around all of his life. He's a lot younger than me, but he has got a beautiful wife, Lee Grant Sellers, and he's got, what, three children?
Yeah. Thankfully, they look like their mother, Steve, so that's a really good thing. If they look like me, they'd be in trouble.
Tell us all about your children. I try to keep up with it now. Now, you and Lee, first of all, you and Lee were born and raised here in Montgomery,
That's
both
right.
of y'all.
Yep.
You a couple of years older than her.
That's right.
And I think
Yep.
so, but y'all grew up together knowing each other.
Well, we grew up down the street from each other, and I'm the youngest in my family. She's the oldest in her family, so we didn't really meet until her younger sister would babysit my brother's children. And my brother, being the wise older brother that he is, he said, you know what, Will, if you've got any sense, you ought to take Lynn Grant's sister out sometime. You're in your last year of law school, she's a senior in college, and you ought to do that. And so I took my brother's advice, and I guess a year later we were married. So just goes to show you should listen to older brothers. There's a good lesson in that for everybody.
How many years y'all been married now?
We've been married, it'll be 36 years this year.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? Time goes by.
It's
a lot of fun. We've had a good life. We've been very, very blessed. We got 3 wonderful children, a little granddaughter and things like that, and we just feel incredibly blessed with our in-laws that we have and our extended family, and which is what made Christmas such a fun time. We had everybody home this year and had a chance to see them and all be together as a family, and there's nothing like that kind of fun family time when everybody's together.
Well, remind our viewers now, you have 3 children, and 1 or 2 of them are here, aren't they?
No, I just have my daughter and her husband live in Birmingham. My sons are off. One of them is in Kansas City, and the other is in Little Rock, and they're all working hard. They're all gainfully employed, Steve.
The older one is in finance. It is kind of like
no,
you.
my middle son is in finance, and my older son, he does some kind of very technical thing with computers, and he seems to be in very high demand because every time we talk to him, he's traveling here or there working on something important. So
now he is the one with the grandchild?
That's right, yeah.
Now y'all went out there for her birth, but there's somebody got married in your family last year.
Steve, last year we had the most complicated year. I had one child that got married in March.
Is that the youngest child?
That's my son. Got married to a great girl from...
He's in Little Rock.
He's in Little Rock. Got married to a great girl from Camden, Arkansas. There's something about Camden. I don't know what it is. You know,
That's right.
There's Camden, Alabama, and Kay Ivey and Joe Bonner and Judy Bonner and Jeff Sessions really from Camden, Alabama, and then my son's wife is from Camden, Arkansas. So he got married in March, and then my older son and his wife had a baby in April. And then my daughter, my youngest child, got married in May. So for all of last year, I think we finally recovered in September. So we had a wonderful family time, which is why it was nice for everybody to be here for Christmas so we could all get together and relive all the fun things I don't think there'll ever be another 2023 for the Sellers family.
No. Now, when, what town is the older son in now?
He lives in Kansas City, Missouri.
That's right, yeah. And that's where the baby is.
That's where my granddaughter is.
What'd they name her?
They named her Marilyn, but she's called Merrill.
I bet a bunch of Lee's gonna want to spend some time out there.
We have a good time seeing that. But the nice thing now is with technology is, you get to, see them live and all that sort of stuff.
That's
so you don't feel like you're missing out like it was You know, years ago when my older sister had children, you know, you'd get pictures in the mail every now and then.
Right.
But now you can see them and all that sort of stuff. So it's like virtual grandparenting.
You know, Will, I get to asking this question because and I guess I can do it because I'm old. I'm trying to keep up with people. Are your mom and daddy still living?
No, they've been dead for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was
yeah.
real successful in the real estate business.
Well, Daddy was an investment banker, and he
That's
was
right.
involved in everything.
Yeah.
I used to travel with him when I was learning how to drive. He would let me be his chauffeur, he called me. And we'd drive, and he'd show me different companies that he had helped finance and different little real estate
So
developments.
he was
had
an
done.
investment banker, not in real estate.
Yeah,
Okay.
but he did a lot of real estate work. I mean, real
Okay.
estate was a real important part of his investment banking activities. So,
Okay.
you know, finance and real estate and things like that. So.
And Lee's dad is an architect.
That's right,
But
yeah.
I think he's still living.
Yeah, they're both. Lee's parents are both still very much alive and in good shape, so we're very
Yeah.
happy to. And they live, you know, fairly near us, and it's kind of fun for all the children to be able to visit with their grandparents.
The Will, now back to your politics. You know, I say this in my columns. I love our Supreme Court, and I seem like y'all work so closely together. I've got some of my best
Yeah.
friends. You're one of my best friends, and Lee, not Lee.
Kelly Wise.
Kelly Wise is
yeah,
one of my favorite
right.
people.
Tommy Bryan.
Tommy Bryan is my favorites.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like Sarah Stewart.
Yeah.
And I love Chris McCool.
Yeah.
You're going to love him.
He's going to be a good addition to our court. You know, it's hard to believe the way this election does. You know, everybody, you know, qualifying ended back in November, but Chris doesn't take over in another year. So we kind of got, you know, it's a strange thing. You feel like he ought to be on the court now because qualifying's ended and he didn't have any opposition. And so, but no, it's a year, you know, it'll be 2025. About this time next year that he'll take his seat.
He'll stay
So
on the Court of Criminal Appeals till the end.
That's
though.
right,
Okay.
that's right.
He won't leave his Court of Criminal
That's right,
Appeals.
that's right.
But I'm going to tell you, I got to know him when he first ran. And
Did you know him when he was a district attorney up
I
there
didn't
in
know him
Pickens
that
County?
early. I
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
meet him when he first ran and came to see me running for the Court of Criminal Appeals.
Yeah.
And he's just so genuine and sincere and just so perfectly suited. That's where I was going with this thing. Not only are y'all good people and good, honest, and got a lot of integrity, but y'all come from such perfectly diverse backgrounds. Now you think about what McCool brings to the court. He's going to bring that rural. You talking about knowing rural Pickens County?
Oh, yeah.
His ancestors go back 6 or 7 generations. He's pastors a church.
Right.
That his great grandparents.
Zion Primitive Baptist
That's
Church.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he was a DA, so he has that background. And then your background is perfect for the court. It's good that people don't know this a lot of times, but you not only have a law degree, you've got a master's in tax law,
Right.
and you were a tax attorney successfully prior to being on the court. So that brings they probably rely on you for that. Jay Mitchell brings
Yeah,
he's another great friend.
We have a very diverse court. We've got 2 former trial judges. That makes a lot of difference. Have a very practical trial judge that's there.
Sarah's one of them.
Yeah, and Brad Mendham.
I forget about Brad.
Brad was
yeah.
a district judge
Right,
for many years and
right.
a circuit judge, and just brings a wealth of common sense experience to the court. So we really, it is a
forget
very
about
well-rounded. I mean, he was a DA too. I mean,
Yeah.
he was assistant DA. So he brings that criminal law background and the district court and all that. So we've got a really strong court that can cover a lot of territory. And it's nice when we all get together
It
because we
is.
have a nice time, and I think we really enjoy each other's company. And I think that's good for the people that you don't have divisiveness, because divisiveness,
Yeah.
you can see it, it doesn't work. You can't produce a product. But when people work together, we can get things done.
Yeah, Brad Mendham, I never forget when he first started running. He lost that first race. Somebody beat him the first time, real close race, and he came back the second time.
Yeah.
I encouraged him to, but people in Dothan love him.
They sure do.
Well, his daddy was a pharmacist, and I wrote a column about Dr. Fernie Johnson recently, that just passed away at 95 years old. David Johnson's daddy,
Right.
and Laura's daddy. Dothan's really a small town. Montgomery County is, but Dothan really is, and they love him in that First Baptist Church down there in Dothan.
Yep. he is a hard person, he is one of the hardest working judges and a great resource for all of us, really, because he just has such a very practical approach to things. And Dothan, I'll tell you, Dothan is one of the fastest growing parts of Alabama that people don't realize. A lot of things going on in Dothan. I saw something that said about all the, Alabama has an 8 number of people moving to Alabama from other places. And Dothan's in the top few in Alabama that people want to live there. It's a great town.
Will Sellers, I have said this for years and years, that if I were a snowbird, and I'd been working in Michigan in a car factory all my life, and my lifelong dream was to move to a warm climate in the Panhandle of Florida, I'd be doggone if I wouldn't stop in Dothan and live there, because if you look at the weather forecast, of course they watch Panama City television there, and they watch Dothan television. The forecast in Dothan, Alabama is the same as Panama City, Florida.
It's beautiful.
It's the same weather, and you got that same 70-degree January day. You got half the property tax, or maybe 10% of the property tax. You got the best medical care. The medical care in Dothan is premier. So if I was an older person retiring, I would flat stop in Dothan, Alabama. If I want to go see the beach, I'd get in my car and drive an hour.
Well, it's not that far.
I
And
drive
sometimes
an
it's
hour.
nice not being right on the beach. You kind of have to
Exactly.
go there and you can kind of do what you need to do. So.
I wonder why they haven't sold that aspect. I think at one time they tried to. But if I were thinking, if I were a snowbird, I stopped there, I'd say, well, this makes a lot more sense. If nothing but the medical care.
I remember as a kid when Wallace Malone was down in Dothan, JVC opened a big plant in Dothan. That was a big deal that Dothan was moving forward, and I think that anchored a lot of important things in that part of Alabama. I really do.
It did, and of course, people don't realize how big Rucker is.
Yeah, it's like Maxwell and Montgomery. I mean, the economic impact of Maxwell's probably $3 billion, and that's probably money we don't all know about.
Will, you are so true about that. Let me tell you one experience. I didn't know this. I grew up in Troy. I always assumed that I'd come to Montgomery. Everybody in Troy comes to Montgomery to shop and everything, doctors, but when I was growing up they did. But I always assumed, even when I was in the legislature and could come up here every day to the legislature, that the state government was the biggest employer in Montgomery. Well, I have the local legislative delegation on my show here every year. I have Kirk Hatcher and Will Barfoot and Clyde Chambliss and all the ones in this area, Reed Ingram, and but I always had the mayor on, and Todd Strange was mayor of Montgomery, and he was sitting right there, and it was a downturn in the economy, and I said to him, I said, Todd, they were actually having to lay state workers off, and I said, I hate that y'all's biggest employer is losing jobs. He said, well, Steve, I'm sorry state government's losing jobs, but that's not our biggest employer. I said, is Hyundai bigger than the state government now? He says, no, it's Maxwell Gunner. It has and always has been.
It really has been, and it's because they're sort of on a base and you don't see them as much, but there's a lot of activity that goes, and civilians that work there, and the people that I think this year, Steve, I think there's 73 foreign countries that send a lieutenant colonel rank type person here to study in Montgomery.
See there?
And it spreads our reputation far and wide. And I've traveled a lot. I've been very fortunate. If you meet an Air Force person anywhere in the world, especially a lot of them have come to Montgomery and Maxwell to go to Air War College, Air Command and Staff, Squadron Officer School, and that kind of thing. So it's pretty big.
I say this to I'm having the congressional candidates that are running that new 2nd Congressional District. Just had Anthony Daniels run, but I've known Brubaker a long time, and I told, and I say to the ones, I said, do y'all realize how important Maxwell Gunner is to that district? And I'm not trying to say that out being on the Ag Committee is not as important, but the way they've drawn this new 2nd District, it makes Maxwell Gunner even more important for whoever wins that 2nd District seat.
Well, a couple of years, I guess it was maybe, at one point we had 3 congressional districts that bordered in Montgomery County.
Right.
And people were kind of lamenting, I said, no, that's a good thing, because we got 3 congressmen that are going to fight for our Air Force base.
Exactly.
That's a big employer, and it's, the redistricting is whatever it is. But it was nice when we had 3 folks that were kind of helping us defend,
It really is.
and with these base closure things, you kind of feel good when you got 3 congressmen that are going to help you go to bat for the thing in your backyard.
Now, one thing good is that Katie Britt loves living in Montgomery.
She does.
I mean, she's dedicated to that Maxwell Gunner thing. I think she is.
She absolutely is.
But you having born and raised and lived in Montgomery all your life, you realize this too. There's a spinoff effect that even just the direct amount of money being spent on that is not all there is to it. A lot of people will move here, like about the climate. They will like it, and they'll say, gosh, I'd like the cost of living here is half of what it is in California. The taxes are 10% of what they are. I can live here a lot better. You have a lot of military retirees here over the years.
Yeah.
You know that growing up here in your church, in your civic things, and they make good retirement money. And
they've worked in state government. And Chick Cleveland, who was the commander of Air University, he worked in state government. He headed the United Way. He was, I mean, a lot of these guys. And when Emory Farmer was mayor, Al Gillum, who had been out there, Al Gillum was like the police chief for a couple of years because he had that, you know, lieutenant general becomes the police chief. He kind of knows how to manage people and all that. So the military retirees have done a lot for the city of Montgomery through the years.
They really have. You know, back to that, how big military spending is, and retired Dothan, and how big Rucker is to Dothan. Do you know even today, in the Panhandle of Florida, as much as real estate costs and how many people go down there to vacation in the 38 Panhandle area, do you know that Eglin and Tyndall are still the biggest economic factors?
Well, I didn't know that. I mean, I'm not surprised now that we talk about it. I mean, Eglin's another one. Tyndall, there's a lot. I mean, if you look in about a 200-mile radius, there's some incredible military installations that do phenomenal. I mean, Hurlburt Field that's down there where special forces are trained. Tyndall, where they've got, I mean, there's a lot of.
Hell, Will Benning's still big.
Yeah, that's right. In Columbus.
Benning's still big.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, I love you doing I love your column too.
Oh, I appreciate that.
How long is this your second or third year?
So this is my 4th year of writing these little monthly columns. Just
It's
about a
once a month.
historical thing that I think about that everybody ought to, maybe they don't know about or don't know the details of. And it's a fun project for me every month to have something in the back of my mind to do some research on.
Well, since my column is in a lot of papers, I read it. I get copies of papers, and I see, God, Will, I bet you're on the online publications too.
The free content sells. You know, if it's free, people will buy it. So I tell everybody, if they've read my little column, it must be a slow news day for people to be publishing my work. So.
You know, little Paul Shashy, part owner in Yellowhammer now.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's made a little career for himself. He's one of the few people I've seen. He was on the ground floor of both Tuberville and Katie Britt's campaigns. You know, I mention this as I'm on that not many people realize this, but Governor Ivey is indeed one of my most popular governors, but she has very, very few really close friends that she feels close to, and you and Lee Sellers, your wife Lee Grant, are 2 of her best friends. You've been her campaign treasurer since she first ran for state treasurer.
Right, in 2001. Yeah, it's hard to believe, but we've had 20 plus years of working on different things. So it's she's extremely popular, and it's because she doesn't she's not a frilly kind of person. She gets the job done. She's straight to the point. She's not interested in trying to to toot her own horn. She just puts her nose to the grindstone. She's surrounded by just some wonderful people that work for her staff. I mean, she just has some tremendous folks that she's surrounded herself with, and she's a great person to work for. And when you're that kind of person and you have impeccable integrity, you attract. The young people that work in her administration, it's really remarkable, especially during, at Christmas season, you see people that you don't normally see and realize there are a lot of very capable young people that are going to have phenomenal careers in Alabama, and they're going to look back and think they first got their foot in the door with the Ivey administration. That's kind of a neat thing.
Does she have a comment about how she enjoys mentoring some of these young people? She didn't talk much about her business.
No, she doesn't. I mean, she's a quiet, get-it-done kind of person. She doesn't like to, necessarily be the center of attention to talk about herself. She likes to focus on policy and moving the state forward and doing what she thinks is what's in the best interest of the people.
And she appreciates her old friends too. She lives by the adage: is you don't make don't leave old friends to make new ones.
That's right.
You know, Alpha lived by that for years.
Still do.
I know they
Still do.
had that same mentality that you don't leave old friends to make new ones. You know, people come to me and they realize that I know Jimmy Parnell and those guys out there pretty well, and they say, well, I want you to help me get the Alpha endorsement. I'm running for some job. And I say, well, you know, that Jimmy Parnell ain't gonna help you do that. You got to go see those farmers one-on-one. And I told every one of them that, and the ones that take that thing, they'll get that endorsement.
You know, you do. You got to get in the car and travel. And I'll tell you, like anything else that you do, it means the world to people when you go and knock on their door in their hometown or in their community or their farm, and you go and say, I want to talk to you about what I believe about these things. And I've had communication that people have still say, I'll never forget the first time I met you. You came to the farm, or you came to the store. You know, you were at the Rotary Club in my little town, and it means a lot to.
You did it the right way, didn't you? You got the Alpha endorsement.
I did. I was I told Mr. Parnell and his group that I think the Alpha endorsement was very critical to nobody running against me, because they've got things in every single community. They've got an incredible network, and their people are well educated because they understand the issues, and the issues are not something that they think, but they impact them directly. So it's not like something where they're kind of focused on some esoteric academic stuff. They understand the meat and potatoes issues, and they know farmers understand reality, and they got so much common sense, and they can detect a phony from a mile off.
They can, and they appreciate you coming to see them.
I'll never forget that folk that somebody was telling me came to see them, and they wore camouflage, but they had too much starch in them. I said, nobody starches their camouflage. You know,
they went out there with the camouflage starch.
Yeah, like they're gonna. You know, people see through all that. You know, you got to be real to everybody, and they'll respond to that.
It's almost like that ad, Will, when remember everybody used to want to shoot a gun in that ad.
I don't remember. Everybody wants to shoot a gun if you're running for office in Alabama. So.
I mean, every political guru had every one of them shooting a gun, and he may have been running for the Supreme Court, but it was a guy named Douglas Johnstone from Mobile. Remember him?
I do. I know Justice Johnstone. Yeah.
And you could tell they'd put a gun in his hand, and you could tell he had never seen a gun before. You know, it's like you say about the guy going there and see the farmers with starch camouflage shirts on, but. They put, I guess they still do. I mean, if you had an opponent and you hired a consulting firm, they probably put a gun in your hand.
Yeah, that's what you do.
I'm going to protect the Second Amendment.
That's right.
You know, it's like, that's why I'm on the Supreme Court. People take their guns seriously. You know it.
Well, see, I mean, I had somebody years ago say, you know, well, in Alabama, even Democrats own guns. I said, Alabama's a unique kind of place. You know, this isn't like Washington, D.C. or New York or anything like that. So.
Will, you and I both, I'm a little older than you, but we both came through Key Club in high school.
That's right, yeah.
Were you governor?
Yeah, I was Key Club governor, 81. You were a few years.
I was lieutenant governor of the Division 8 in the southeast, the Wiregrass. Troy, Dothan.
Pike County, Houston County.
Yeah. Oh, Judge White, was he still doing it?
Judge White was a remarkable guy, wasn't he?
He'd been around a long time.
Gosh. That's how I got involved in Key Club, is there wasn't anybody running for lieutenant governor. And I got a call on the phone. It was during dinner, and Daddy had a strict rule that said nobody talks on the phone during dinner. But Judge White called, and I guess my mother answered, and she didn't know that Judge White wasn't really a judge. That was kind of his nickname. And she said, well, Will, there's a judge on the phone. So I was able to break the rule, and it was Judge White.
And you were 16 years old?
I was about maybe
15.
that. I was afraid. She said, there's a judge on the phone. I started thinking of all the things I'd done that week, you know, to make sure I hadn't been. But it was Judge White, and he told me, he said,
you were already in Key Club?
I was in Key Club, and he called me and said, we don't have anybody running for lieutenant governor. I want you to consider it. Well, what was
the division Montgomery was in?
7.
Well, who all was in that one?
Well, it was all of the Montgomery schools, and then we reached out to Lowndes and Dallas County. We had Selma was in there. We had about
that was y'all's division.
That was our division.
Mine was the Wiregrass. I was Division 8.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a candidate, so they were picking you to run.
So Judge White picked me to run, and you know, I guess it was a good thing because I ran unopposed then too. So maybe that started me in this pattern that I've developed. But
now, is this your second term on the Supreme Court, or third?
So the governor appointed me. I ran in 2018, and then I'm up this year. But when qualifying ended, I didn't have any opposition.
Right.
So I'll be starting my second full term, but I had already served about 2 years because the governor appointed me when there was a vacancy on the court.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know, Will, I'm not saying you're getting close to my age, but, you know, they made old Tom Parker quit because he's 70 years old.
Yeah.
And they didn't change that law, probably.
Well, you know, they've changed it in some counties where the probate judge is somebody everybody likes, and they kind of extend it from 70 to 75. And there's been some talk about, you know, doing that through the years. So
5 years wouldn't make much difference.
no.
I mean, people start thinking about really retiring at
Well, we
75.
really lost. I mean, I'll just tell you, Mike Boland, who had to retire,
Exactly.
we really lost a lot of intellectual capacity and just you know, experience when we lost Mike Boland. I mean, Mike was just a great. I mean, he's doing great on the county commission, Jefferson County. They're glad to have him, but I miss him on the court. I'm glad Greg Cook's there. Greg is a wonderful addition to the court, but Mike was a really good. He was the senior associate justice, and Mike just had a lot of personal experience and could solve a lot of problems.
He's one of my good friends.
He's
too.
a great guy. Great guy. He's doing such a good job. It's just wonderful how that county commission seat kind of dropped in his lap.
It is. But now, another aspect, going back to point I was making, though, is he brought an aspect of that probate judge experience.
Oh, right.
See, y'all all bring something unique. Your tax law, McCullough bring a rural prosecutor. Kelly's got unique things. Kelly worked in retail.
Yeah.
As a young lady, you know, with one of the major companies, Procter & Gamble or somebody.
Yeah.
Then Sarah Stewart's been a circuit, like you said, being a circuit judge is really good. It's really important for that Chief Justice job because the Chief Justice, a lot of people wanted you to run for that, and I'm glad as a friend you didn't because it'd have been a lot of work, you know, on you for, you know. But being a Supreme Court, being a circuit judge does help in that job because there's a lot of administrative stuff they got to do.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things we found out during COVID is you don't think about it until there's an emergency, but the Supreme Court actually has to run the judicial branch. And we had COVID going on, and everybody's looking in the mirror, and we realized we were the last. You know, the buck stopped with all of us, and boy, I'll never forget. We had some pretty long and lengthy things. But what are we going to do? How do you know, you can't close you can close courthouses down, but you know, there's still things that have to be adjudicated.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
things that have to go on. So how do we keep the courthouses open for business in a way that protects people and all that? And that was we had several interesting months of dealing with COVID, and that's when you realize that the Supreme Court has a lot to say with how the rest of the court system has to operate. So that was not a fun thing, but it was something that we had to do, and it was you know, a time we had to all step up to the plate and think bigger than ourselves. So.
Well, our time's up. I appreciate you doing this with me. Our guest tonight, folks, has been Judge Will Sellers, beginning his second or third term, however you want to do it, on the Alabama Supreme Court. He's nice enough to come on our show, even though he has no opponent. He'll begin his third term next year on the state Supreme Court, and he and Lee are jewels for the state of Alabama. We thank him for taking time out of his busy schedule to be with us, and thank you, viewers, for watching. Hope you tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Appreciate it.